So as of the completion of William Barr's testimony today, we're not really sure what will happen with whatever report or reports Robert Mueller hands over to the Justice Department if William Barr is confirmed as Attorney General. And it would seem ethically routine for an Attorney General nominee of a president already under criminal investigation by the Justice Department to promise to recuse himself from supervising that investigation in his confirmation hearing. But that's not what happened today. William Barr said that he would consider any recusal recommendation made by Justice Department experts, but that final decision, after hearing their advice on recusal, would be his decision and his alone.
Under what scenario would you imagine that you would not follow the recommendation of the career ethics officials in the Department of Justice to recuse yourself from the Mueller investigation?
If I disagreed with them.
And that was that. William Barr was not asked if he believes he could credibly explain to the American people why he did not recuse himself after Justice Department officials recommend that he recuse himself, if that happens. Senator Amy Klobuchar pressed William Barr on what line a president would have to cross to be guilty of obstruction of justice.
A president persuading a person to commit perjury would be obstruction. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or any person who persuades another to, yeah.
Okay. You also said that a president or any person convincing a witness to change testimony would be obstruction. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And on page 2, you said that a president deliberately impairing the integrity or availability of evidence would be an obstruction. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so what if a president told a witness not to cooperate with an investigation or hinted at a pardon?
You know, I'd have to know the specific. I'd have to know the specific facts.
Okay. And you wrote on page 1 that if a president knowingly destroys or alters evidence, that would be obstruction.
Yes.
Okay. So what if a president drafted a misleading statement to conceal the purpose of a meeting? Would that be obstruction?
Again, you know, I'd have to know the specifics.
After a break, we have analysis of today's confirmation hearing from two experts, Elliot Williams, former Justice Department official, and Lisa Graves, former counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
In my opinion, if a president attempts to intervene in a matter that he has a stake in to protect himself, that should first be looked at as a breach of his constitutional duties.
Joining our discussion now, Elliot Williams, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General at the Department of Justice. He worked on the Senate confirmations of Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. Also, Lisa Graves, former Chief Counsel for nominations for the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Lisa and Elliot, you've been on the opposite sides of this process. Elliot with the nominee, Lisa on the side grilling the nominee. Let me start with Elliot, who's been there with the nominee. Your reaction to what you saw today, and what do the supporters of the Mueller investigation have to feel good about? What do they have to worry about at the end of this testimony?
Well, look, Lawrence, if you like Matthew Whitaker, you're going to love William Barr. No, because on all of the matters that are of importance to the Mueller investigation, on the question of whether he would rely on the opinions of career attorneys at the Justice Department, he didn't give answers. Skilled attorneys, and he's a very skilled attorney, spend their entire career learning how not to answer questions and answering questions in a manner that sounds sort of good, but really isn't actually providing any meaningful information. And he never said he would rely on the answers of the thoughts of career attorneys, and he never said that he would commit to making the report public. This is a matter of enormous public interest, and not making a commitment to make the report public should be very troubling. So across the board, he hasn't shown himself to be much a departure from his predecessors. So to answer your question, no, people should not be thrilled on this question of what to do with the Mueller investigation.
Senator Chris Coons took one of the most important questions of the day, both from history and from his own observation and listening to Donald Trump for 2 years. Let's listen to Chris Coons' question that got a strong answer from William Barr.
If the president directed you to change those regulations and then fire Mueller, or simply directly fired Mueller, would you follow Richardson's example and resign instead?
Assuming there was no good cause?
Assuming no good cause.
I would not carry out that instruction.
And so, Lisa Graves, William Barr essentially said there will be another Saturday Night Massacre if he is ordered to fire Robert Mueller by Donald Trump.
That's what he said, but I'm not sure that that's what he would do, because in other parts of his answers, he basically made himself out to be sort of the opposite of Elliot. And in many ways, what we see with Barr is two people: the person who wrote that inflammatory memo, basically siding with the president at every turn and mapping out an extreme position of extremely broad presidential power. And then you saw the statement this morning prepared for the hearing in which he tried to strike a more moderate tone. He's someone who has taken a lot of extreme positions over the years. He has a demonstrated record of hostility toward women's rights, toward LGBTQ rights, civil liberties, immigrants' rights, and more. But he also has these extremely troubling, extremely deferential views toward the president. And I think that he would, unfortunately, not take the Elliot Abrams approach in reality. In fact, I think that he would be someone who might be more of an attorney enabler versus an attorney general really defending the rule of law for our country.
We're just mixed up our Elliots. We're talking about Elliot Richardson.
Elliot.
Lisa
Yes.
slipped in.
Yes, Elliot Richardson.
We have
Yes.
all three famous Elliots in government are involved in this segment tonight, including Elliot Williams, to who the next question goes.
Yes.
Elliot, we are on the tip of the iceberg of what this hearing was about. In fact, it was about a lot more than the Mueller investigation. Some fascinating comments by William Barr about how he would treat states that have made marijuana legal, how he would not try to interfere with that from his position as Attorney General, which is something of a change from Jeff Sessions. All of that we don't have time for, and because we're in an atmosphere where we are facing the urgency of the Mueller investigation. And so the focus is entirely on that. It seems like William Barr, barring any shocking surprise, has full support of all the Republicans, certainly on the committee. Will certainly have full support, likely, of all Republicans on the Senate floor. And so it seems like this is Robert Mueller's new boss.
Yeah, it seems like it is Robert Mueller's new boss. But again, let's be clear. The mere fact that someone held a job 30 years ago doesn't entitle him to it, and doesn't entitle him to get through without a full and complete vetting. So a great example is on criminal justice matters. He's espoused a lot of views, and at least this is the one thing that Lisa left out in her amazing list of places where he's problematic. But these sort of lock them all up views that were in favor in the late 80s and the early 1990s that he's carried into today, that even Republicans today, Senate Republicans in a Senate that voted 87-12 for criminal justice reform, just views that aren't held. And so, yes, he's likely to be confirmed, but the Senate should still go through its full responsibility to dig up his record and really see what's hiding back there. And again, a lot of it is just out of touch and certainly certainly worthy of a second look from the rest of the senators. But again, this process is flawed to the point that someone can get through a confirmation hearing without really answering questions in a meaningful manner.
Elliot Williams and Lisa Graves, thank you both for joining us on what is so far the most important Senate hearing of the year, soon to be outdone by surely dozens of hearings involving the Mueller investigation and other things. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.